I'm Simmons Chase with synthetic.com. I'm pleased to introduce Prashant Kohli, who leads Acasti Pharma. Acasti is developing a novel way to deliver a treatment for a debilitating type of hemorrhagic stroke. And before we get started, I'd like to remind viewers that this is not a recommendation to buy or sell any securities. This is just a way for viewers to distill exceptional from average in terms of the factors I look for in companies, and that's team, TAM, and novelty. And there's another dimension with Acasti's story that I think is important, and that is risk. Risk is not something you can measure. You have to just make a judgment about it. So why don't you start by describing Acasti and why it is both promising and largely de-risked?
Thank you, Simmons. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to your viewers on synthetic.com. Acasti is a really compelling late-stage story that is very well poised to disrupt the standard of care in a rare disease called subarachnoid hemorrhage, or SAH. The incidence is 50,000 cases of hemorrhagic stroke, specifically SAH, in the US. The only standard of care pharmacotherapy in the United States and most countries worldwide is a calcium channel blocker called nimodipine. In the US, nimodipine is only available orally as an oral in the oral dosage form. And there are significant issues, clinically relevant issues, when nimodipine is given through the oral route. The molecule, the compound, is clinically de-risked. It's written into the American Heart and Stroke Association care guidelines for SAH. The Joint Commission, as part of its process to certify stroke centers, routinely evaluates the usage of nimodipine in SAH patients at that hospital. So there isn't the optionality, if you will, of a hospital choosing not to use nimodipine. Physicians do not have to be convinced about using nimodipine in SAH patients. So for all intents and purposes, clinically, the compound is de-risked. There are issues, unmet medical needs when the drug is given through the oral route. That's where our innovation comes in. A drug candidate called GTX-104. Our scientists figured out a way to solubilize nimodipine via a beautifully elegant micellar technology, an aqueous formulation, so that it can be infused peripherally or centrally into this patient population, and really address these unmet clinical needs that present when the drug is given through the oral route. Our regulatory pathway is also relatively de-risked. We had met with the FDA in person right around the pre-pandemic timeframe and negotiated a path to an NDA that we believe is very compelling and de-risked. 2 steps to an NDA. Step 1 was a PK bridging trial in healthy subjects that we successfully completed in 2022. We aligned with the FDA on our phase 3 protocol. Step 2 towards the NDA submission, which is the Strive-On trial that we are currently enrolling patients in. It's a safety trial. The endpoints are all safety related. The FDA wanted to make sure when changing the dosing route from oral to IV, from a checkbox standpoint, that IV is well tolerated in patients. And that is a trial, our pivotal phase 3 safety trial called Strive-On, that we are currently in the midst of. Now, keep in mind that we have not only conducted the phase 1 trial in 2022. We have done multiple phase 1 trials, head-to-head intravenous nimodipine GTX-104 versus oral nimodipine, and very comparable safety between the two dosage routes. So we believe the STRIVE-ON trial, should be relatively de-risked. It's a 100-patient trial, 50 IV, 50 oral, 2 arms, open label. We anticipate wrapping up the trial and filing for our NDA in the first half of next year, 2025, with an anticipated approval later next year. It's a compelling market opportunity from a commercial standpoint, $300+ million. We have an orphan drug designation for GTX-104, which grants us 7 years of market exclusivity upon NDA approval. Not only that, we have an exceptionally strong patent firewall, 5 patents already issued in the US, multiple worldwide. And our oldest patent doesn't even come due until 2037, so relatively long patent life, and our youngest 2042.
So Prashant, I have a question.
Sure.
I've heard of PK bridging studies before, but I've never seen one in the wild. And when we were talking before, the clinical trial, the pivotal trial you're in, it resembles a device trial because it's much shorter. It's a much shorter path to approval than most drugs, and this is because it's been de-risked. Can you talk about that? Is that something you've experienced before? Did you anticipate that you'd have a fast path for approval?
Yeah, great question. So from a regulatory standpoint, being able to get through the PK bridging trial allows us to do a scientific bridge between GTX-104 and the oral nimodipine. Why that scientific bridge is really critical is that it checks on the efficacy box. Nimodipine is nimodipine in both arms. It's the same active ingredient in both arms. So we do not, the FDA agreed, need to prove that it is superior to the oral nimodipine, meaning GTX-104 from an efficacy standpoint. And figuring out the dosing regimen at which we meet the PK parameters, and what the FDA guided us to was day 1 Cmax and day 3 AUC, which we successfully accomplished in the phase 1 bridging trial. So having met the criteria of bridging day 1 Cmax and day 3 AUC with our dosing regimen in GTX-104 with the oral nimodipine is what successfully accomplished the scientific bridge, aka the efficacy checkbox, if you will. That was really significant because what the FDA concurred once we accomplished that is it opened up to the 505(b)(2) regulatory pathway. Now, if it was the same, hypothetically, let's say if it was the same dosing route, with some other formulation, we most likely could have done a paper NDA at that point and filed our application. However, given that this is a different dosing regimen, different dosing route, that's where the FDA wanted to make sure that we did a safety study in patients. We also negotiated with them. Trying to do a powered design study was going to be very challenging in a rare disease, particularly, and that's when they advised us to do a 100-patient, 50 IV, 50 oral. So overall, the study design, we believe, is relatively de-risked, from what it could have been with an efficacy trial. The PK bridging allowed us to check box on the efficacy, and now leading to the safety trial in STRIVE-ON.
So Prashant, another striking feature that was interesting to me is the ease of administration. These patients are in an ICU setting, very debilitating type of stroke. And that ease of administration translates directly into lower cost. So you're hitting two really important things, offering relief for nurses and hospitals in general, and a real cost advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, Simon. In terms of SAH itself, as you correctly identified, it's a debilitating, life-threatening condition. There's a rupture of an aneurysm deep inside the brain. There aren't any known risk factors. Majority of the patients, it just strikes out of the blue, as you would expect with a active bleed deep inside the brain. Majority of the patients are unconscious. They're presented in the hospital setting, in the neuro ICU. Hopefully, they make it to a certified stroke center, which has the neurosurgical, endovascular, and skilled physicians to take care of the patient. Now, it requires a patient journey surgical intervention to secure the bleed, so stop the bleeding. Now, once the bleed has been secured, the only pharmacotherapy known to improve outcomes is nimodipine. It has a very high dosing burden, as you also pointed out. In an unconscious, majority of the patients being either unconscious or dysphagic, nimodipine has challenges. High first pass metabolism when given orally. What that means is it has to be given several times a day, every 4 hours. These two massive pills, up to 21 days. And that adds a lot to the care burden in the hospital setting. Nimodipine also has a side effect of hypotension, which is a drop in blood pressure. When the patient becomes hypotensive, clinically, clinically significant hypotension, that could potentially be a code blue type scenario. For adult patients, what that means is they might have to be administered vasopressors, intraarterial vasopressors, angioplasty to prop up their blood pressure. While that is happening, they might not be given the nimodipine therapy, so it gets routinely withheld. In fact, published literature shows that in over half the patients, nimodipine therapy is routinely withheld to better manage hypotension. So the only drug known to improve outcomes is being routinely withheld today because of the hypotension issue. And that's where the value proposition of GTX-104 comes in. As one key opinion leader mentioned, it's more of a set it and forget it type administration. Could be that easy to give nimodipine. It's given through IV, so you can better titrate and manage hypotension when the drug is given in near real time, as opposed to someone swallowing a medication. All bets are off. You can't really take the medication out of someone's system. So IV in this particular case, really hits on not only ease of administration and lower nursing and staffing burden, perhaps reduction of rescue therapy, pressor use, angioplasty, and so forth, which have a real cost benefit to a hospital in an increasingly cost-sensitive world. But also, the patient has a better chance of getting close to a full therapeutic dose of nimodipine, since it might not have to be withheld as often, and the idea being improve in outcomes as well. So we believe that there's a strong pharmacoeconomic case. Typically, you hear about conversion from IV to oral. Most people might be familiar with that. Here we are going from oral to IV, and there's a clinically rational justification for that because of the challenges with this particular compound, and there haven't been any successful attempts to create an aqueous formulation that is well tolerated by patients, which is what we believe GTX-104 to be.
So nibodipine has really modest sales to date. I mean, there's the obvious problem of ICU patients having their GI tract shut down or inoperable. Looking at your TAM, you have to look through nibodipine's present sales, and then what could happen when your therapy greatly expands that TAM and offers like a massive amount of value to these patients. I think there's some really bad outcomes too, right? This is more than 50% of patients die or are left severely debilitated.
It is a horrible condition. 2/3 of the patient ultimately do not either survive or live with long-term morbidity. So very high cost to the patient, the family, obviously the healthcare system as well. One of the most expensive diseases to treat in an ICU setting. So there is a really tangible cost associated with SAH, and being able to bend that curve is where the value proposition of GTX-104 comes in, not only from a cost standpoint, as I said, but hopefully lead to better patient outcomes as well. And the pharmacoeconomic case is one that we started working on that several years ago when we were developing the program itself, including extensive interactions with the leading comprehensive stroke centers in the country, building an extensive network of neurosurgeons and neurointensivists across the country, and really allowing them to opine on where is the value here? How do we create value for the patient, for the healthcare system, and how best do we extract that for the company as well? And that's where GTX-104, while the patient is in the hospital setting, based on our research, primary research, 14 days while they're in the hospital, is when we would be administering, is when patients are most likely to get GTX-104. And based on that use case, we have modeled out the potential TAM for this market opportunity. It's closer to $500 million, the total addressable market, based on some nominal price premium over the oral, especially the liquid formulation of nimodipine. It's a $500 million market opportunity. The serviceable market, which is again the slice of patients, majority of them being unconscious for 14 days, comes to a serviceable market of around $300 million. So it's a sizable market opportunity. Based on our work, 70% of the patient volume is concentrated in about 400 or so hospitals, and this market opportunity can be monetized with a highly experienced hospital sales force, 30 to 40 reps to capture majority of the market here.
Well, I'd like to close by having you comment on your cash balance, and I think you've got runway to complete the trial. And I'd also point out that your company is trading its market cap is close to the cash balance. So that's just another remarkable dimension to this story, that everything you've just described is not at all captured in your market cap, and you're on the smaller side, and that presents opportunity, massive asymmetry, I would imagine. So you've got readouts at the end of this year. And your burn rate is sufficient to carry to that point, right?
Yeah, so we took a lot of hard decisions last year, very early last year, to make sure that we really optimized the company's cost structure and made sure that we had enough fuel, if you will, to fully fund the trial. We embarked and have successfully finished that organizational transformation, a year ago. On the heels of that, we were able to bring in some more fundamental investors. We did a PIPE transaction in the early fall of last year. Combining all of those efforts, we have cash runway all the way into second calendar quarter 2026. So we have runway to fully fund, cash on hand to fully fund the STRIVE-ON trial, file for our NDA application. In terms of what we reported, $25 million as of December 31st of last year. 25 million is what our cash position was as of that reporting period.
Right.
And then again, confirming that we have cash on hand to fully fund the STRIVE-ON trial.
Well, Prashant, it's a very exciting story. Thank you for taking time to introduce your story to synthetic.com viewers.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it, Simon. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.